What's up, guys? This is Leviathan Kraken here, and I'm doing something a little bit different today. I know there's been a lot of hype around this Chat GPT thing, and I know that there have been some YouTubers that have asked it Subnautica related questions in the past, and I was having a little bit of fun with it. And I decided to ask it, why did Subnautica Below Zero fail? Yes, I know I've already made a video about it, but this is actually part 2 to that video. And this time, we're going to be asking Chat GPT what it thinks. The question I keyed in here is, most players have a poor opinion of Below Zero. Why do you think that is? And you guys are absolutely not going to believe what it told me. It just really hit a lot of these topics right on the head. It was perfect, dead on. One thing I wanted to say before I begin is, yes, I know everyone has complained about the volume on the part 1 of this video, how Below Zero failed. I'm sorry. I know it was too loud. That won't happen again. Alright, so let's get started. Alright, so it starts off by saying here, the reception of Subnautica Below Zero has been mixed among players, and there can be several factors contributing to the poor opinions expressed by some players. Here are a few possible reasons. Alright, here we go. So it gave me 5 different reasons. It just labeled them all. I mean, I was just really shocked when I saw this. So, number 1, it starts off with saying high expectations. And I know probably where a lot of you are thinking where this is going. Subnautica set a high bar with its immersive gameplay, captivating story, and unique underwater world. As a result, players had lofty expectations for Below Zero, hoping for a similar or even better experience. If Below Zero fell short of those expectations in certain aspects, it could lead to disappointment and negative feedback. Okay, so I have heard this from a lot of people. A lot of people saying that we're unfairly comparing it. You know, we had just too high of expectations of wanting the same kind of game. But, you know, what I want to start off by saying is, this is what made Subnautica good. You know, when I first played this game, I first watched it from seeing Corey Kenshin play and seeing other YouTubers, and I got into it. But what blew me away was not only the fact of how terrifying it was. I think that's what draws most people in. How deep the water is. And then when you get into this storyline, everything is so mysterious. You don't know what's going on, and you slowly start piecing things together. And when you do find these mysterious alien structures, it really is, it is so fascinating, and it keeps you hooked. And as I mentioned, the scary aspect, I mean, of course, there's the Leviathans, there's, as I just said, the deep water, and a lot of all of these factors contribute to a really great game that keep people coming back and keep them hooked. So I'm going to move on to part 2. It says that early access development. Below Zero initially released in early access, which means it was an unfinished and evolving game during its development. Early access games often have bugs, performance issues, and incomplete features, which can impact the overall player experience. If players encountered significant problems or felt that the game wasn't polished enough, it could contribute to negative opinions. So, when I read this, it almost seems to me like Chat GPT is telling people not to put their games in early access, like it's saying that that's not a good idea, because when you do see the very beginning, you see the ugliness and you see the polish as it slowly comes. And so I suppose I somewhat agree. Your opinion of the game can be impacted when you see the development starting from the very beginning, but I love early access games. I think it's really a great experience to see it evolve, but that's just my opinion. There's some people that they don't want to see anything. They don't want any spoilers or anything until the whole thing is finished, and I totally get that. So on that line, I've noticed that I have talked to a lot of people that what they did was, when the game started going south as far as the storyline changing, or if they saw something they didn't like, they just immediately quit playing. Or they might have just said, hey, I've already seen everything. I've seen the whole game. I've zoomed through the map. I've done everything. I've built bases. I've beat everything. I don't need to see the complete version. So they told me, well, I haven't played it in so long. I haven't played the final version. And I'm like, why not? Why have you not played? You've done all this, but you haven't seen the polished final version. So a lot of people did quit playing, and I definitely, to those people, I would say if you played in early access and you have not seen the polished final version of the game, you need to go through and play it. Alright, so now part 3, it says comparison to the original. Since Below Zero is a standalone expansion to Subnautica, players inevitably compare it to the original game. Some players may feel that Below Zero didn't live up to the standards set by its predecessor, whether in terms of storytelling, world design, or gameplay mechanics. This comparison can sometimes overshadow the positive aspects of Below Zero and result in negative feedback. So now this right here, this is kind of a little bit a different way of saying the first part right here about the high expectations, but they're saying comparison. Now I hear this from so many people in my comments. Everyone's just saying, look, well, you're just comparing the Leviathans to the original. Your hype was already built up and now it's down because of the second game is, you've already played through the first game and you've kind of gotten numb to this and that. Okay, so there might be some things that I agree with, but a lot of that I don't agree with. So what I'm going to say, first of all, is that it's saying here that we're comparing it to the original game. Well, we don't want the same game completely remade. We as the fans, we don't want you to remake Subnautica 1 exactly the same. We're not expecting that. And we know this is your game, this is your baby, this is your art, and we want to see that shine in the way that you want to make it. But what I'm going to say is that if you have a formula, as I mentioned earlier with the scary, how frightening everything is and how mysterious the storyline is, when you have a formula that works, don't change the formula. You don't have to remake the same exact game, but a lot of people did not like the fact that the story was linear. You have this Alan guy in your head and he's just telling you where to go and he's giving you all this information and you don't feel any bit of mystery from it. You don't feel the same feeling as you do in the first game. So another thing is, of course, obviously the map being smaller. Yes, we are. You better believe we're comparing it to the first game because we're getting not even, well, what, maybe half of the amount of volume of map size. So yes, in that comparison, Below Zero failed. It was not nearly as big. It was not a full, complete game. Or at least we didn't feel like it was compared to the original. And as it's saying here at comparison, as I mentioned, the Leviathans, are the Leviathans truly less scary? I've had so many people say, well, yeah, you're numb to it. They're scary. But as I brought out in my last video, I don't think that they were quite implemented the way they should have been. The Glycerate scared me a couple times, but his design, I feel like, could have been a little bit more terrifying, like the Void versions. I think that maybe if they had just the Glycerate Void version in the game and then something more frightening in the Void, that would have been a really great improvement right there. The Shadow Leviathan, as I brought out in my last video, he's impossible to avoid. He's right there in front of your face, and you're going to see that animation of him attacking your sea truck over and over because there's just no way to dodge him. You're in this tiny little crystal caverns area, and you can't get away from him. And if his movements, they look good, but with all those legs and everything, I felt like he could have been crawling around, and he could have been, if they would have done his movements a little bit differently, he could have been a lot more scary. On that note, does the game even need to be scary for us to enjoy it? I think it does. That's my opinion. I think that being terrified of water and of what lies beneath, you're on this. Imagine right now that you're out in the middle of the ocean and you're floating on top of the water, and you look down, and because I've been reading all these horror stories where people got left off of a cruise ship or something, or thrown overboard, and they die this horrible death out in the middle of nowhere. You look down and you have no idea what's below you. You have no idea what's down there lurking, or what could swallow you up at any minute. That's what makes the game so good. It's the mystery of swimming out into a new biome and not knowing what's going to attack you. That is part of it. Alright, now moving on to part 4. Changes in gameplay and atmosphere. Below Zero introduced new gameplay mechanics such as cold mechanics, land exploration, and altered biomes. These changes, while attempting to provide a fresh experience, may not have resonated with some players. If these additions or modifications didn't align with their expectations or preferences, it could lead to dissatisfaction. So, yes, this is probably the number one thing. Of course, not only the fact that the map is smaller, but you have a game titled Subnautica. When people play Subnautica, they're wanting water, not a whole lot of land. That's why we only had 2 small islands in the first game. And I think that they could not have had any issue if they would have had just small, well, maybe not small, but larger glaciers that you can walk on instead of a big giant landmass where almost half the game is walking on land. I think that that's a big disappointment in itself. You could have the ice worms, they could have swam from one glacier to the next and moved that way. As I brought out in my last video, there's no doubt they could swim. So if they would have made the game with just less land, as even Chat GPT says here, that would have been a big thing. Now the cold mechanics, I don't have a problem with that. I think that brings a much more different aspect of difficulty to the game, and I think that was really good. I think that was not something I disagree with. But the land exploration, as it says altered biomes, now I'll just say that a lot of them felt more claustrophobic. They felt squeezed in. They take this small map and they're just trying to put as much in it as they can. And so a lot of people did complain that you swap over from one biome to the next too quickly. And they're all condensed. They're compacted in too much. And that threw a lot of people off. Okay, so now number 5. Technical issues, bugs, glitches, and performance problems can significantly impact players' enjoyment of a game. If players encountered frequent crashes, save file corruptions, or other technical issues while playing Below Zero, it can contribute to their negative opinions. Now, I'm on PC, so I did experience some glitches here and there, but not quite as many as they did on console. In fact, when release date came out for Switch and PlayStation 4, I know it was an absolute nightmare for a lot of people. I thankfully did not run into those issues, but it was all over the Subnautica news. So many bugs, so many people saying, I'm done with this game. I got so far in my save file and it got corrupted, or there was a game-breaking bug and I could not continue, so I'm done with it. And I totally get that. When you release a game for console, you need to make sure that it's polished completely, that it's ready to go. And I do feel that there was an element of the game being rushed and them not getting everything out polished quite as well as they have. Now that they're bought out by Krafton, we know that they have a bigger crew. They have a larger crew. They have a lot more at their disposal, so I don't think that's going to really be a problem in the future. But bugs and glitches, yeah. Chat GPT, you nailed it. And then it says, final note, it says it's important to note that not all players have a poor opinion of Below Zero, and there are also many who enjoyed the game and appreciated its unique elements. Different players have different tastes and expectations, so opinions on games can vary widely. Ultimately, the perception of Below Zero is subjective, and it's best to try the game for yourself if you're interested to form your own opinion. Alright, and I mean, that's all I have for you today. It just something I wanted to talk about, make like a part 2, and kind of get a different perspective on why that I felt that Below Zero did not quite meet up to expectations. Now, a lot of people get mad when I say it failed. Well, all that means is that it failed in comparison. It's still one of my favorite games. I will say it's beautiful, and if you have not played Below Zero, I highly encourage you to play it. It's a good game. Alright, peace out, guys.